And welcome again to the SMPS Mastermore Learning Lab, Building Resilience, a practical approach to go, no-go decisions in the AEC go-go world. Christina, Diana, and Nick, the virtual stage is all yours.
Good morning. Welcome. As Kevin graciously let everybody know, this is a conversation about go, no go. For those of you that don't know us, my name is Diana Lovelace. I am the group product manager here at Uninet CRM by Cosential. Been with the product for about 15 years. Prior to that, I was a marketer and business developer in the industry. And we're going to do our best to walk you through today's topic. Christina.
Thanks, Diana. So it's so great to join you and our SMPS colleagues today. I describe in my bio, I do come from the trenches of professional services marketing for AEC. Been involved in this industry for a long time, and Diana and I have worked together for a long time, and we're both friends and colleagues, and I'm so excited that she could join me here as co-presenter. Partly because we can finish each other's sentences and think so alike, but also because of the work that she and our colleague Nick Mayfield, who is a business analyst over on the product side, are doing with our clients to really revamp and make super awesome our products, go, no go, and other kinds of forms. So it's pretty cool, all the stuff that they're doing. So we are going to jump right into this. We'll take a fast look at our agenda. We're going to cover a lot of content in about 45 minutes and then leave 15 minutes open for Q&A at the end. We have hopefully a lot of participants here. We would love for you to ask your questions in Q&A, right? We will maybe be able to incorporate answers as Diana and I talk. And if not, definitely we will recap and come back to the Q&A at the end. So we wanted to just, none of this is shocking to you, but we just wanted to set the stage. There's a lot of work out there, and there's a lot of opportunity, and there are a lot of challenges. And so I've always heard that it's a sign of a really successful firm that they know how to say no to projects that they really want to do early and often. It's true. Research bears this out, and it's especially critical to have this skill when the enviable challenge is having too many projects to pick from. So we're going to dive into that today. And by the way, these memes that we referenced throughout, if you're not checking out AEC marketing memes on Instagram, recommended. It's not where we do all of our client experience research, but it's definitely a tool. So we wanted to quickly define go, no go. None of this is going to be surprising. It is the strategic evaluation process to determine if your firm is going to commit your resources to going after a pursuit. I want to note it really is a process. Throughout our presentation, we're really going to be talking about the primary tool, which is the go, no go form, and it's the cornerstone of that process. But a really fully realized process can have a lot of components. There can be system notifications, you can have multiple approval levels. What we wanted to do with today is really focus on helping you create a simple process if you don't have one. We're going to provide both example form questions and an analytic spreadsheet. Those will be available for you to download. And we also are going to share ideas about how you can improve and standardize the process if you have kind of a loosely followed process and you'd like to introduce more rigor, show more results. So Diana, Nick, and I have all been super involved in being involved in go-no-goes in our own firms and working with clients, and we've seen hundreds of forms, and so we're kind of excited to share the distillation of that experience with you. So we wanted to talk benefits, right? So none of these, of course, are going to be surprising, but they're really worth noting, and maybe coming back to this slide, if you're finding the process challenging, you want to remind yourself, what's in it for me? What's the light at the end of the tunnel? A really good go, no go process is going to do the most important thing. Of course, you're going to win more work. It's worth noting that it's the right work. the work that your colleagues, that your firm wants to do that really is going to be a successful project as evaluated on a lot of different criteria. Going to make the best use of limited resources, which are even more limited than they've ever been, right? Mitigate risk, also super important. Improve morale. We all want to be on a winning team, right? This is a really important component. And I want to take a moment and just talk about clarified decision making, right? It's listed last in our fourth, but by all means, it is probably the most important bullet point in a lot of ways. There's a lot of talk about data-driven decision making, right? It is really important. It's very worthwhile. It's why we're all here. Logical analysis is one of the most effective ways to communicate with our colleagues who, by the nature of their professions, are really often very logical, data-driven, right? We can have that conversation with them. But also, we're all people, and we want what we want. And there are projects that we really just want to do. And without a process that's agreed upon with the right questions, those decisions don't get made, as smart and logical as we all are. Edward Tufte, who's a super well-known data scientist who talks a lot about how to effectively display data, talks about the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. And he really analyzes all the graphics that they looked at to help make the decision to launch that fateful day. And he looks at that graphic and how it really didn't display the right information, and that in the absence of having good data to talk to, that decision maker group just turned into trading anecdotes about, well, I remember when we launched and it was, 90 degrees and we were fine, and somebody else had a story. That's what can happen at our firms. We're just going by gut instinct, we're trading stories. And when you start looking at data, you realize this is often disconnected from the actual data, right? My firm really wanted to go after academic libraries. They're really sexy, fun design projects, and we would have been, we were great. We were really well qualified, but we couldn't prove it. So it was a process of working with my partners to help us understand why we couldn't meet the criteria and come up with strategies so that we could create a winning submission for that kind of work, right? So these are all our awesome benefits that we're going to explore during this session.
Perfect. I have to say about the memes. We really enjoyed them. We do have them scattered throughout quite a bit, just to add a little levity to a pretty dry topic. So just so y'all know. So we do want to talk about complexity and formality of go, no go. Now that we're all on the same page, it's really important to come back and take a look at, okay, we know what go, no go is, we know why it's important, but really there's a vast difference between what firms are doing. So in addition to our experience in the industry, as Christina mentioned, we've been planning the redesign of our go, no go process within our tool. And part of that process, we're throwing out go, no go, and we're just creating forms that include the go, no go use case, but that's, another story. So when we took a step back and started thinking through that, one of the things we do is we talk to our end users, and we have a lot of conversations and a lot of validation meetings. And one of the things that we realized and really brought home, even more so than what we assumed we knew, is that vast difference. And there really is no right or wrong answer, right? It's really what is going to work for your firm today. Not, oh, we're just doing this. I wish we were. What's working for your firm at its maturity level today? And I think that's one of the best pieces of advice that I've gotten throughout my career is, yeah, I know that everybody's telling you as a professional marketer, we should be here and we should be doing this. But it's also really important to have a little compassion for yourself and make sure that what you're doing is something that's practical and that you can actually get people to do within your firm now. So as we start to talk about that and think about that, there are those two, I kind of think of them as I wanted to do like a 3D quadrant thing of complexity, formality, and where's everybody landing, but we simplified it. So when you start thinking about this, and we broke it down into 3 main buckets that we could all fall into with our go, no go process. What works for your firm, right? We really don't have a go, no go process. Our seller doers or BDers, they bring us what they want to pursue, and we somehow figure out a way to get it done. And that's what happens at our firm. And we just respond to everything that we feel we want to. Okay. And that works for a lot of firms. Some firms have a process, but it's really informal. Yeah, we have something, it's not really enforced. Some of our groups or business units use it regularly, and some don't use it at all. But it's there if they want to use it, and we kind of leave that up to those individual groups. And then you have those firms that are much more stringent about this. Process is followed for every pursuit, and we are empowered as a marketing team, business development team. We're empowered by our leadership team to push back when it's not being followed. I've heard examples of, you know what? If it wasn't in the system, we're not going to pursue it. If we didn't know about it before the RFP hit the streets, we're not going to pursue it. And then, of course, did you do a go, no go yet? If that process hasn't been followed, it's a clear no, and we're just not going to follow it. So there's really that gamut, right, of those different formalities to go, no go. So as we move into our next topic here, would be the complexity. So just like most things in life, we can choose to implement something pretty quick and simple, like a group discussion where the outcome is a simple go, no go decision. Or, and I think most who have a process fall into the middle category, we're going to find out here, fall into this middle spot where they have a questionnaire, and that questionnaire might have an auto approval number. So if it's greater than a 5, it's a go, or if it's less than a 2, it's a no-go, something like that. And there might even be an approver, somebody whose role at your firm is to review all of these go, no-go processes. And are we going through the process, and where are we landing? Can we approve this? That's pretty standard for firms that have a process in place, is to use something more like that. And then, of course, there's the more complex. In that more complex world, we start thinking of multiple questions at multiple decision points. And maybe there's an entirely different form that you're asking people with different groups of questions. Or if you have a system of some sort of CRM or a go, no go tool that you're utilizing, maybe there's different pieces of information that are required at different points in your process as you're going through things. And it can really be much more complex. Or you've got multiple approvals. I've worked with a client who had an approval at the, so first there was the division lead had to approve it, and then there was a regional approval, and then lastly there was an accounting approval, which really, as you can imagine, comes back into, is this a client we've worked with before, and are they paying their bills on time, kind of conversation. So it's just, it runs the gamut, and whatever's going to work best for your firm is really where you want to land. Before we go forward, I'm going to go backward here for a minute, because as you're thinking about these things, as you're thinking about your formal process and you're thinking about complexity, we're going to launch a poll for all of you. It's a quick 1-question poll. And I really encourage everybody to answer, because your input is going to help you all build the case to gain shareholder buy-in. And again, we know what we think the answer is, where everybody's going to lie, but it's really beneficial to validate all of those opinions and assumptions. We want to make sure you're only answering once, right? So that we get a good solid piece of data that we can help you utilize to gain buy-in if you want to move toward a go, no go process, or you want to improve your process or make it more formal.
All right, Diana, this is a good group. Everybody jumped in quick there.
Awesome.
80%. Thank you.
You know, SMPS crew, you guys are always willing to participate, which is great. Jumping right in.
Maybe give it just one more minute or so, let folks get their answers in quick here. It's getting close. We got 375 folks on board, so
Perfect. So while if you've already answered this one and you're waiting for the next topic or the next point of conversation, we're going to have another poll, and it's the last one, I promise. We're only doing 2 polls. This second poll is going to ask you where your hit rate is today. So take a minute or so to think through that. You don't have to be exact. It doesn't have to be precise. In fact, I believe we've got ranges for you all to look at on that next poll. So when you're thinking again about the formality at your firm, oh, and I see we've launched the poll, perfect. So when you're thinking about the formality and where does your firm land, this does have 4 questions, but I really want you just to answer the question that matches up with where your firm landed. So if you do not have a process today and your formality level is really low, then you're going to want to answer that first question. If you are in that mid-range where you have an informal process, what does your hit rate look like today? And then, of course, if you have, that would be your number 2 question. And the number 3 question is if you have that formal process where you're pretty stringent and nothing gets by you, right? Everything's going to have a go, no go attached to it. That process is really being followed really well. Then that's where you're going to give us that hit rate on that one. And again, the reason we're trying to gather this data for you is so that when you are going back to your teams and you're trying to either make a change to your go, no go or implement go, no go at your firm, you want to be able to have some data to back you up. Like Christina mentioned, right? Data driven is huge. So we want to make sure that we're giving you guys that information. So you're walking back with that. And the size of our group today really lends well to getting a good data sample. And we'll leave that up for a minute while Christina goes on to our next topic.
I have 2 things. One is we have a couple people with raised hands. So I want to see if we can, if you can post your question in Q&A so we can figure out what those are. And also, I like that we have a typo that where we called it hit rage
I
in
see
the poll.
that.
Maybe this is our feelings coming out about this, right?
Oh no, I see that all 3 questions were required in the poll on the second poll.
Oh,
Yeah,
Sorry about
sorry, I
that.
saw that. My apologies.
So we're going to have some skewed data.
Apologize.
do we want to circle back and relaunch in a little bit? Up
Yeah,
to
let's
you.
do that.
However you want to do that. Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
Kevin,
right,
let's
so
relaunch that
I'll end
poll.
this one. Sounds good.
Perfect. Thank you.
that sounds great. And you can always launch it while I'm talking, right? Like there's no,
Yep, I'll put
it's
it
not going to
there.
interfere with that. That sounds great.
Now that everybody's thought about their hit rate and they've got it in their head.
Exactly. So we'll just relaunch it. Those 3 questions, and then get that non-skewed data. We are marketers able to pivot, so I'm happy to
Adapt and
do
overcome.
that.
Here we go.
Right. So we want to jump into the building an effective go no go framework, because it's really the what we wanted is to really share with you tools like, okay, what do if you don't have anything or you just want to revamp your process, what do you start with? That's what we want to do, because you guys don't have extra time either, right? We just want to give you something you could start with today. Oh, I love that meme too. We're going to jump right into what we think the key metrics questions are. These bullet points are going to build because we're crafty like this, and Diana asked me to do that. So what we did is that Nick, Diana, and I talked about, okay, if you just have 4 questions, right? You're starting small. What's the smallest data set where you could get a realistic sense of what are the key metrics under consideration, right? That is about, is my firm qualified? What's the client like? What's the competitive landscape? And timing. When did we know about it? So the very first question is, did we know about it in advance? And of course, this is the idea that ideally our firm is moving from a position of being just a vendor to a trusted advisor with a client where we have a long-term relationship. And when they have a need, we help them build the RFP and we know about it in advance, right? There are experts who I've heard, over the years say, you can have a one question go, no go form, and that would be the question, did you know about it in advance? It's a very bold proposition, but I like to throw it out there to emphasize how important that question is. 2, client, how well do we know the client? And you're going to see on all of these ideas for consideration that we quantified them in a list of values. This is a lesson that I learned the hard way. I had a very elaborate form that I thought was super awesome, but I didn't have enough precision, and so my partners had very different ideas about what a good client relationship was, right? One was, well, we worked with them 10 years ago and it was great then. They hadn't talked to them since, right? So that was not really the working definition that me and the other partners had. So it was very helpful for us to revisit that and define these. We want to understand also how we can prove our qualifications, right? And as the question that I used, for all of these questions, you can swap in something that may speak to your challenges or your strengths better. The one I picked was, can we showcase recent referenceable projects that demonstrate our capabilities? And we list here how many projects. It's worth noting that I had to really define that because, again, we had older projects that
love the
recent.
referenceable piece in there.
Yeah, and referenceable. That's the other.
Key. It's a referenceable project. Yeah.
For all of these, right, I tend to be wordy, but you want to be precise enough so that you are in this decision-making process, you are apples to apples, right? It doesn't matter if we've done 100 tiny projects 10 years ago. I mean, yes, partner, it's very important, and those were great projects, but to win this new work, this is the criteria, right? The last one that we picked was, does it seem like this RFP is wired for somebody else? And this is, you know, you can't overstate how important that is, right? It may not make it an automatic no if it's wired for somebody else, but you should definitely know what you're up against and the kinds of resources that you might have to throw at this to take it away from somebody that's obviously wired for, right? So we thought this is, if you don't have anything or you want to revamp and just go for a simple, these are 4 great starting points. If you love data and you want a lot of information, you can ask for a lot. Diana's going to tell me to be briefer. Yes.
No, I have a quick comment. We did have a question. Is this slide going to be available? It is. The whole presentation is going to be available to you all. And we're also going to provide you the opportunity to download an example hit rate Excel template, which has these exact questions and responses in it as well. So I wanted to make sure you guys were there. And it looks like our hit rate poll is up again, but it does look like the questions are still required, Kevin.
Hey, what?
Sorry, Christina, carry on.
We're really going to have hit rate rage by the end. Right? We threw in some other metrics, right? I'll just mention each of these really quickly. None of these are going to be shocking either. Resource availability. You could really look to understand, do we have technical resources, right? Do we have marketing resources? Although that's not always a primary consideration. How well does this align with our schedule? Again, on the marketing actual production, the BD, our folks, but also the work itself. Are we going to have bandwidth to do it? Geographic can be very expensive to do work far from home. It's another thing to bring in potential consideration, right? And all these we did criteria for as well. Project profitability. So is the project itself going to be a moneymaker, or maybe it's a loss leader and it's very prestigious, but we want to do it? Relatedly, as a client's ability to pay can also be another question that can be very important to consider. Alignment with our company's vision, right? So does it fit with our values? There's a lot of work types that we may really want to consider whether they align with our company vision or our strategic plan. Is this work in a core market for us? Again, we need to define that, right? These are all great kinds of questions that can be considered. The last one is something I don't remember. What's our last potential consideration? Oh, contractual feasibility. This is, it's worth noting, although a lot of times for smaller jobs, you're just not going to know, right? But maybe it's a client where they have notoriously difficult contracts. As you go through this, you're going to figure out the smallest data set of questions that you can ask. And I emphasize smallest because it's work to enter the data, it's work to have the discussion. Ideally, you get to the shortest list possible that gives you the right answer, right?
Perfect.
One more thing. Did you want to say something, Diana?
I'm sorry about that. I was glitching around through. Kevin, it looks like they're still required. You might want to just do 3 separate polls. And
That's
we
what I'm
do have-
doing.
Perfect.
Yep.
And we do have
Perfect.
a
Working on it
great
right
question.
now.
Perfect. Thank you. We do have a great question on government procurement that we're going to hold for the end.
Great. That sounds awesome. One last thing that I did while we're talking about key potential considerations. So 2 things. One is on my SMPS, there are a ton of go, no go forms. There's a lot out there, right? If you're interested in this and you like a lot of data, it can be tempting to really spend all your time sleuthing out all the options, which is why I'm sharing the short version for that. But there's a lot of great resources that our super smart colleagues have done. The last thing I wanted to mention as we talk about considerations is you may want to have a deal breaker question, right? At the environmental firm that I worked with, when we implemented our formal go, no go process, so we'd had informal for a long time, and then we worked through developing a formal one, we included our deal breaker question, which was, is the submittal date less than 24 hours away? I know, so hardcore, right? But our problem was that we had really streamlined all of our process and we were able to turn around products super quickly. So we were a victim of our own success, and the deadlines kept getting shorter and shorter, and then same day requests became the norm. So we did an analysis because we had all that data that we had been tracking. So we did an analysis, shared that with our president, and looked at the hit rate for those last minute requests, which a lot of those were RFPs that we had not been working with the client. It was just a, hey, I think at the last minute we should do it. Just like our meme, right? So she backed us to have this as our deal breaker question. I don't think our staff thought we were really going to do it, but the first one that we said no to, they realized we were serious. And from that day forward, it was like a miracle. People practically came running to our office the minute they heard about something to say, I think we're going to pursue this.
And it's interesting, though, for that to work, you have to have buy-in from the top. You have to have the executive leadership empowering you to push back and say, yeah, we're not going to do this. Because you didn't, our deal breaker hit.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right, we're going to talk about how you create the criteria, and this is for if you're creating a new form from nothing, or you're refining your current form. We're really looking at a cycle of calibrate, get the right metrics, track consistently, analyze your results, refine the results, and it's a continuous improvement cycle, right? So we're going to talk about calibrating the metrics, right? And it's worth spending a minute on this. We want to be sure that the metrics are primarily values with clearly defined criteria. And in the forms that we designed, I did most things as values, and then I had like a free-form text box of like narrative, right? Is there anything else you'd like to add that would be important for this decision making? What I have found in refining these over time is that if the data isn't values, it's really hard to get alignment and be talking apples to apples. It also makes your data entry much faster and easier. You want to make sure that you have the correct precision, and you may not get it right at first. This is something that can take a little bit to master. All the ones that we've provided are values, but yes, no, you could do yes, no. You could do 3 to 5 kind of more broadly defined values. T-shirt sizes, it's something we use over on the software side, right? People really just instinctively get that. I provided an example for you. It's the more clarity you can have, the better your process is going to be. And then think about, as you look at this, how you weight each value. Is this question like a deal break? How does it rank in the, what are the answers? If the answer is no to this, an absolute 0, does this mean this project is a super long shot, right? And in the spreadsheet that Diana did, she really weighted those. You can definitely adjust, but that's the key thing. the more questions you have, the more you have to figure out the weighting too. It becomes much more complex to do the back end. So it's another reason to, especially starting, keep it simple, right? So it's worth noting that what we're talking about as far as implementing is before you try to get stakeholder buy-in, measure, right? So you're not gonna, I'm not recommending that you do what I did. Just get all your decision makers to agree on things that are important to them, create a 20-question form, and hope that we're gonna use it. Our mission is track the data, get a good measuring system, and then come to your stakeholders and say, we can predict the future. So let's talk about if you would like to have an interest in that, right? In order to make that happen, you're going to track for every competitive proposal. And it's also worth noting, you can do this in a spreadsheet, you can do it in a system. We are agnostic, right? Especially when you are starting out, just use the tool that's easiest and best for you and that you'll actually do, right? Keep it to 4 to 6 key metrics, as we've talked about. I can't help myself. There are a couple key milestone dates I think are really important to include, and they can relate to doing further analysis down the road. These are important, and I'm suggesting that you include them. If shortlist and interview are a part of your firm's typical selection process, the cool thing you can do is then look at your overall hit rate and then look at shortlist, right? And you can actually develop different models. We're keeping it simple. Labor hours, it's really important that, so if your firm, a lot of firms track the labor and expenses for each pursuit, right? Awesome if you're already doing that. If not, and it's not an easy lift to make that happen, just start tracking. Just create a shared spreadsheet, start tracking so that you can gauge truly the labor hours that it took. At my firm, we were surprised at the actual hours that were involved. Some firms, their submissions are pretty consistent. On my firm, we did sort of a small, medium, large, extra large based on the actual hours, right? The important thing is that you have dollars to attach to this, because it's all theoretical until you can come to your stakeholders and say, this is how much money we spent going after pursuits where our go, no go evaluation indicated we were not likely to win it. That's what we want to do, is show the ROI, the alignment with our company's strategic vision, and that we are being excellent stewards of our company's resources. Diana, did I miss anything that you want to talk about on these data points?
No, I think we're clear. We would just quickly touch on ensure data integrity, right? If you're tracking this somewhere, make sure everything that you need to know is properly captured, whether that be on a spreadsheet or, like we said, in a tool that you may be using. Yeah.
Great.
We're going to keep going because we're at 15 minutes before Q&A.
Let's talk about thinking about all the different fields, right? Super side note, and this is a tool that's going to be available in the spreadsheet. This is something that I built for myself as I think about data and implementing, looking at the different kinds of key metrics that you can want to understand about a pursuit. Where are we in the pipeline? What's our win probability? What's our go, no go? Forecasting revenue. What do I need to know to prepare? How do I understand my hit rate and forecast? And then how do I provide all the information that county needs to set up a new project, right? So I looked at, okay, these are the different fields that I need to build the full list of all fields that are required so that I make sure that I'm capturing all the data for all these potential different purposes. In order to make this data management manageable, you don't have to collect all this data at once, right? And so I looked at a very streamlined opportunity stages of prospecting. We're thinking about it. We have something in mind, so we know a little bit more. We have a due date, right? We have that data. I can enter it in my spreadsheet, or in our system, you can require it by stage, so you can't move to the next stage without it, which is nice. What do I need to prepare? I know a little more. I have a PM. I've submitted it. I have a little more data. Shortlisted, of course, I have those key dates. Interviewed, again, my key dates about when the interview was. Verbal award, the client says it's ours. If there's anything missing, left out, maybe services, and I have a close date, I can have all of that data. This I found is a really effective way for me to visualize when in the process I'm going to have all this data. one of the things that can cause a measuring process to fall down is trying to get all the data up front. Get 50 fields. You're never going to get it.
Christina, real quick.
It's simple, definitely.
So
Yes.
I launched the GoNo the hit rate
Mm-hmm.
poll. It's only for the first one is going to be for those who answered none.
Mm-hmm.
So if you answered none on your current go process, then that poll is for you. I will leave that up for the next 3 minutes, and then I'll make an announcement, and I'll switch it up, and I'll launch the one for informal. And we'll leave that up for 3 or 4 minutes, and then I'll launch the one for formal at the very end, and then we'll aggregate.
And then
Thanks,
Nick, real quick, do you want to end the poll and share the results for the first one?
We have that coming up.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Cool. All right. So speaking of analyzing results, so once you have all this data that you are tracking, probably on your own, right, as a marketing team, and I did this. My firm had a very elaborate go which was creating more strife than decision making. And so what we did is we started using a different system, kind of measuring along the way. So we kind of had both going on at once. How do you analyze the results? So you're going to sort by the win-loss. Do we win, lose, and then by the score. So you can evaluate how well that score corresponds to wins or losses, right? So are we accurately predicting wins with these questions? Are we accurately predicting losses? And then you'll see in our memes, like I feel like half the memes that Diana and I looked at were like marketers going, oh, no, we're not a fit. This is wrong, right? It's that instinctive stuff we know. So then you're going to, one of the things that we do, I mentioned, is like of all the spreadsheets, also just make a note, just overall win-loss notes, so that when it's fresh in your mind and you're like, we won, we lost, just quick notes, so that when you're back looking at this, you can go, wait, why, what was the thing that makes the score so different than the results? This is, well, of course, when you're doing this analysis, you want to bring in your labor results so that we can look at the overall dollars for what we spent on the wins and the losses. One of the things to note too is that Diana's firm used just a percentage of evaluating the overall expenditure, which was, I think, 4% of the overall value. It's another way that you could just sort of get a ballpark estimate for how much money it is. I'm not sure I understand. Siri doesn't understand, but I know you guys do. You're going to continue to adjust this. We said every 6 months. I feel like you could go every 3 months if you wanted to, right? Every 3 months, until you are at a point where you feel like you are really able to understand all the key variables and be able to share those results with your decision makers. We're showing an example of our dashboard. This is, to me, the super fun part, right? Being able to visualize this. That's what we're taking a look at here. This is our refining, right? Do we need more questions? Hopefully the answer is no, but maybe greater precisions, right, to those questions. But maybe there's a critical question that you need to add into it, right? And then we talk about executive buy-in. Did you want to talk about this, Diana?
Sure. This is a summary page. When I mentioned we have that Excel template for you all, if you want it, you can download it. This is what she's talking about, right? Put something in place that maybe just you and your team know about, and you're just tracking for 6 months. How is this doing? Let's go in and answer all the questions, and let's start to see if we can predict the wins and losses based on our score. This is the information that's going to help you gain executive buy-in. As Christina said, when you come back to the table and you want to say, hey, by the way, I've been doing this side project and we've been kind of tracking what our wins and losses look like. And we put some questions into play to see if we could start to predict those things. And these are the dollars we would have saved with our predicted losses. This is the stuff that we are pursuing and we're winning. And this is kind of where we're at. That's going to help you gain that executive buy-in to make that change management and move everybody over to a go, no go piece. This is another view of those same results, right? Example results coming back at you, right? We've been able to predict winners. We were predicting losers. What is our hit rate looking like, capture rate? So once you're starting to track those things, you can actually be able to come back and have much more accuracy in what you're pursuing, what you're choosing to pursue. We wanted to throw this one up one more time just to remind you all of those key benefits of a well-implemented go, no go, to keep everything moving forward, right? It's not just about winning work. You want to win the right work. We all know there's that thing of, you know, oh, just put it up there in front of the client. Yeah, we don't want to be in front of the client as a loser because this is not the right work for us. Or we're taking on a project that we know we're not going to be able to deliver to our normal standards. And again, it's going to be a hit to our reputation. You want to make sure you're winning the right work, work that's profitable, work that you guys are assured that you can successfully deliver, right? Optimizing your resources. One of my favorites when we first started doing go, no go within Cosential at the time, Uninet CRM, and we had a form out there, and one of my sample questions, which was my favorite, was, is the product manager going to be available during the pursuit process? No, minus 100 points. Are there marketing resources available for this? No, minus 150 points. It was just because it is such an important question, and you want to make sure that, from my mind, that you guys have the time to put more strategy into the work that is impactful for your firm and have a good solid impact on what's happening with your firm. So we just wanted to make sure we reiterated those for you all. It's going to take us right into, yes, Christina, do you want to say something? I know you love this.
No, I just, this one makes me laugh, right?
You know, so we may have been working pretty late last week on these and got into the meme world and went down that rabbit hole together. So implementing go, no go, right? Wouldn't that feel great if you were able to actually convince a PM that this really was not the best thing for you all to pursue? It just makes me happy to think about that. We've got a couple minutes left before we go into our Q&A session. And I just have a few more brief things to share with you guys. When you're looking to implement a go, no go process, right? Change management is hard. We all know that. If you already have a process in place and you want to make tweaks and changes to it, again, it's hard to do that. We always recommend starting small, keep it simple, don't overwhelm people. And again, this is a screenshot of that little tool that we've put together, the Excel template of just being able to track what's happening for a couple of months and see what's going on. Find your champions, right? Find those seller doers, business developers who are excited to have a tool and ask them to evangelize the new process to their peers. The message is so much better received when it's coming from somebody that they're working directly with. Not that they don't love us in marketing, but when they hear it from someone else who's struggling with the same day-to-day routines and activities that, hey, by the way, I've started doing this and it's really I'm making better decisions and we're getting better, more strategic pursuits out the door and my hit rates are going up. It's always a good thing. Support the process. You don't want to be introducing a new process to your team. Remember, change management is hard. And what is it that we all know about marketing? You tell them what you're going to tell them what you told them, and tell them what you just told them again, right? There's that tell them. Same thing with this. You want to support the process. So you've brought the process out, you've walked everybody through it. Now you want to be there to repeatedly have multiple opportunities for your users, for your business developers and seller doers to learn that process and start to live that process and offer to help. Hey, let's do it together the first couple of times and we can kind of talk through the questions and the answers so that we're all doing this in a similar fashion. Possibly the most important here, the what's in it for me factor, right? Gather use cases. I know it sounds a little odd, but when you're listening to the conversations that are going on at your firm and you're listening for the wins, you're listening for that champion, somebody who's over there saying, yeah, I couldn't believe I was and we did this. And they predicted it correctly. It was going to be a loser, or we won that work and it's doing so much better. And now we have more time for this. Any of those good specific examples that you can get where somebody has had a good solid win, a good solid win utilizing go, no go, is going to help move the needle and help with that change management. Again, we wanted to give you guys a couple examples of some flows of a very simple go, no go process, right? Hey, there's a new pursuit. Great. Here's a form. A system's going to send out an email, or you send out an email. Maybe your PIC and your PM are completing that. And based on an automated score, you're going to decide if it's a yes or a no, right? Very simple, quick and easy, not a lot going on there. Or more complex, right? Like a Shipley method. Where you have, you've got your 6 or 7 team reviews, you've got your 5 gate approvals, all of those things start to fall into place where there's a lot more conversation and a lot more gut checks of where are we at. And I've seen this with some firms. In fact, we talked about having a real world example for you guys. We have a lot of E&R top contractors as well as design firms are our clients. And I grabbed one, I kind of blurred out some details that showed who specifically this was, but this particular firm has 3 approval gates, 3 different processes based on project value, as you can see over here in this screenshot of our workflow tool, right? Things that are $2 to $10 million, we've got this approval gate. If it's more than 10 million to 200, we've got this approval gate. So it's really interesting to see how complex some firms can get. In addition to those gates, whoops, time for Q&A. In addition to those gates, their forms, they've got multiple forms, and they get progressively more complex. Like Christina was showing with the data that you want to gather, as you get further into that pursuit process, your questions and answers are going to become more complex. And they also have multiple approvers, as I had mentioned, and this is helping them continue to run and build their business. So let's see. If you want to download that CRM example Excel spreadsheet, you can click on here. There's a brief little Microsoft form, and then we'll send you that spreadsheet example so you can have that, and you can get in and use it. And Christina's happy to answer questions. If you have questions, I'll give you her email address, and she can help you, with that Excel spreadsheet.
The Excel spreadsheet that Diana designed. So yes, we are happy to address that. We do have some questions that we would love to take a few minutes and answer. I want to do just a couple, kind of round these up. Housekeeping questions. Great question. Is this webinar approved for CEUs? We're going to ask Kevin to weigh in on that. This session will be recorded, and it will be available in my SMPS as a recording. That is the couple of the, you have the Excel template, so you'll be able to download the Excel template from us this session. We're happy to provide any other resources. Just reach out to us. For these questions, oh, and the other thing, Jonathan, you asked, where can we share a link to the resources? So in addition to the resources we're providing, if you do a search in my SMPS for Go, No Go, there are thousands of results, and people have shared forms. There's a lot there. So that's another way that you can utilize that. Diana, for some of these, there are a couple great questions here that I thought we could take on. One is from Matt about inevitably there's the one wild card they decide to go after, and then they bring it up. Like we win it, right?
Yeah.
And they bring it up every time we're talking about another.
Don't you hate that
card.
when you win those things that you clearly should have lost? You had like, a day and a half to get it ready if you had that much time, and you threw it out the door and you won. And I think when that comes up in my mind, and Christina, chime in here if you want, but in my mind, when that kind of thing comes up, what that is a great point to say, you know what, you're right. Let's go back and look at the decisions that we made for that pursuit, and let's take that pursuit and bring it to our go, no go questions that we've built and see what kind of a score it gets. And maybe we need to adjust our questions a little bit or adjust our scoring a little bit to make sure that we can accommodate for those unicorns that come in the door. Or sometimes that happens. Sometimes there was something that we didn't know. Maybe it was wired for us and we didn't know.
Right? Yes.
So,
I mean, one of the things that, and Nick, after I say this, I'd love to see what your thoughts are. One of the things that we started doing was doing a debrief, not only on the jobs that we lost, but the jobs that we won for that reason, because why we thought we were getting some jobs was not true. And we really needed, that was another data point we needed to loop back in, because we were fulfilling, we thought it was because we were so awesome. We are a women-owned business and we were fulfilling the quotient, right? And that's a very different way to win that kind of work. And that's not where we wanted to be. Nick, did you want to chime in on that question?
You bet. Yeah. The debrief is one of the single strongest tools in the marketer toolbox, because you can get that feedback, because we, as marketers, we get stuff on our desk and we get it done, it's out the door, and then we never see it again or hear much more. So getting that feedback is great. And I always like to do 2 checks kind of right after, like maybe a presentation or something like that. We'll do a kind of a temperature check, but everybody's really kind of jacked up and high on the process, and they're like, well, it was great, we did awesome. So, and then I like to follow up 2 to 3 days later once they've slept on it, and actually kind of mold it over a little bit and be like, okay, this is where we struggled and we could have done better, and these are the questions that we asked. So we pull those questions down and make sure we have them for future reference for when we're prepping for the next presentation. But yeah, that 2 to 3 day after debrief can be illuminating for marketers.
Exactly.
Love a good
point.
debrief.
Diana, I want to comment on this, that I love this from Anonymous saying, I'm almost thinking the weight of the questions shouldn't be shown to the PM so they cannot manipulate the answers.
What?
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. I think
sure.
it's and both things, right? And one of the things that I've seen in one of the thousands of GoNo-Go forms that I've looked at is one of them had next to the form how much the average cost of each submittal was. So they had it front and center right there when you're answering the questions, just to bring it forward again. This is a significant investment. Diana, what about the question that we have from Tim about, can we talk about how government procurement factors in? He's saying 95% of their work's with local government agencies, which has their idiosyncrasies, which we well know, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you feel like that for some firms, we worked with the same agencies over and over, and that was actually a thing that we started making part of ours, was not only our relationship, but like, what are the requirements from this agency? Do you know what I mean? Like, not only is our relationship good, but does this client have a lot of onerous submission requirements, right?
I was just going to say, yeah, when you are working with those local agencies, you do tend to work with the same agencies repeatedly, or that same agency repeatedly. And in addition to, one of the things I always said was, hey, turn their templates into your templates. But you can also take those typical questions or those idiosyncrasies that come from them and store them somewhere so that oh, we're pursuing work with this client. Don't forget, these are those other things we need to evaluate and make sure that we are catching on all of these things. And again, if you're capturing something in a tool or a system, maybe you could add that to the company area. Maybe there's a boilerplate text spot where you can store those things and link them back to that particular company so that you have that ready to go, and you can be sure to add those questions or take those into consideration. And another thing you might want to do is if you're going to do a GoNo-Go form, a questionnaire, what might be smart is to include a question like that. Is there anything specific about this client and their typical requirements of us that we need to be aware of, or that we need to be cognizant of and thinking through during that GoNo-Go process? And again, that's just going to trigger it in everybody's mind to pause and think for a minute. Oh, that's right. Does WashDOT really need us to do this, this, and this? I forget every time we submit to them, we always have to come back, and these are the things that are important to them.
There have been quite a few questions about kind of the politics surrounding the GoNo-Go decision. And, what do you do if the team is adamant and they're making those emotional decisions? They're adamant on chasing something that they're not qualified for, or times are, slow. And so they're going after, they're going after stuff that's a little bit more aspirational. So I don't know if we want to touch on that.
I think that comes back to Christina's point of, let's track it for a while. Track those pursuits and plug them into that little formula, that little spreadsheet. Plug them in and start tracking and seeing what's going on, and being able to come back and say, okay, I know that times are hard right now. We need to get work in the door. However, we're spending this much in resources to chase work that we're not going to win, and we're able to predict pretty consistently where we're going to win work and where we're not. And I think that's going to help you with that point. And again, you've got to get, if you're in one of those firms where you've got one of your principals is really the managing principal and one's more the marketing salesy principal, get the managing principal on your side. The person that's holding the purse strings, that's going to help influence the marketing principal in my mind.
For sure. And if you can tie it back into the dollars, that's where it's going to really hit home for the executives, is tie it back to the dollars and show them the things that you cannot do because you're chasing all of this aspirational work. Show them what's being missed because of that from a business development perspective. Do y'all want to get into the poll results? We have about 4 minutes.
Yeah, I do really want to get into that. That's a really good question about the politics, right? And one of the things I'll just really quickly say is at my firm, we really strove to be reporters of the information, and these are the available resources, the time, and then when we reached a point, we did resource planning, right? This is what we have on deck. This is the labor required, and these are the go, no go scores. Help us make a decision of what you'd like us to pursue. And it was very much a like, let's work together to make the most, as opposed to the emotional side that we really wanted to do. We had to really separate the emotion and present it as a resource planning issue. What were you going to say, Diana?
And well, I was going to say, while we were at our user conference in Arizona this last spring, I had a conversation with an attendee, and Courtney Kearney came up and we were chatting, and it was kind of the same thing. And Courtney's advice was, say, great, I'm happy to chase that one. Here's the other 5 that are currently on my plate. Which one do you want me to drop off? These that you help me prioritize this, because this is what's all on my plate. So if we're going to continue on this one, where we know maybe we don't have the right qualifications to win this work, which of these 5 that we are well suited for do you want me to take off my plate and keep us moving forward? And again, putting that decision and that prioritization back in their hands of, yeah, I'm happy to help. What else do you want me to leave on the floor, right? Which I think was great advice. I did put the QR code back up. I'm seeing a couple of you are saying it's not working for some reason.
Yeah, I just tried it, Diana. It's working again.
Okay, good. Good. So yes, if you want to have that that file that we put together, just fill that in, and I will shoot the emails out once we're done with the webinar to everybody with that Excel file. So you kind of all have that. So let's get into, we did have a wrap up few minutes. We've got 3 minutes. Part of the wrap up here. There we go. Nice. Thank you, Nick. He was frantically updating our stats out here. So 8% of you are currently running without a GoNo at the moment, right? And 70% have an informal piece, 22% more formal, which is great.
So the data on this one's going to be a bit skewed because it was launched before everybody knew that there was going to be 3 polls for non-informal, formal. So we have I think there was, even though there was 8% people answered none, there were 20% of the participants answered on this poll. So it'll be a little bit skewed, but
it looks like it's all over the place, but kind of on the lower end of the spectrum, right? For none, which is what we kind of expect to see, right?
Right.
Like,
I would imagine that 20% up there and the greater than 55 is probably some of the ones that answered informal or formal, if I had to take a shot in the dark.
Right. And then informal.
Again, you guys are going to have access to this deck. So these are things that you can bring forward in when you're trying to get stakeholder buy-in or executive buy-in, right? And we have just under 350 attendees, 368. Perfect. So it's, like I said, it's a good sampling to see, where we're at.
So informal's a little skewing a little higher, right? Based on this, but, and then formal, look at how formal jumps up to 23% are over 55%. Yeah. This is the key slide to share, right? With your stakeholders about a formal process gets us into the 55%. Right. And we're really thinking of hit rate as jobs pursued versus one when the decision has been made and excluding pending. We're not really, because that's the metric that most people measure, right? Of course, there's capture rate too, which is the dollars pursued versus dollars won, but we're just really looking at straight number of jobs. Feel free to interpret this as you wish when you speak with your colleagues, right?
Right?
Yeah, if you look at the
Okay.
bottom, the under 30% category for each one,
Mhm.
it drops from 19 for none to then 15, then to 12. So that shows you right there.
Yeah.
Right. And we
It's
encourage you,
really-
if you asked us a question that we didn't answer, please reach out to us. I'm christina.leahy@uninet.com. Feel free to email me, connect with us on LinkedIn. We are happy to talk with you more about the challenges that you might be facing. So I encourage you
It's the
to
favorite part of
connect
our
with
day.
us. Exactly.
Staying connected to you guys. We really worked hard not to promote Uninet CRM because we wanted to make sure by Cosential, we wanted to make sure this was agnostic for you guys and you were really just getting the content from us. If you do want more information on our product, you can certainly click on the QR code here and get to our, contact us page, or uninet.com is another way to get out there and get some more details.
Thank you guys so much.
All right. Well, hey, gang, real quick, I just want to say two things just to repeat and build on what Christina and I said earlier. Yep, CPSMs, you do get CEUs for this. It's 1 hour long. You get one CEU. Hang on to your registration. Keep that in your portfolio. And then just go to the PTC site and enter this as a learning lab. People do it all the time. And friends, I mentioned earlier in my opening notes, yeah, this program will be saved to my SMPS. It's going to be in the Marketing Resource Center under the MRC library. And then on the left, you're going to see a column for the Master More Learning Labs. So that's where it's going to be saved. Again, give that 24, 48 hours and it should be posted in there. And then one final question for the team here. Guys, I see a few things still here in the Q&A. Should I just copy those and send those on to you? Some of the questions that came in later?
Please.
Or sounds good.
Yeah, send them on and we will get back to everybody. Make sure you include email addresses.
Yep. And yeah, please include your email address on that, because then that way they can get them to you. Give me 1 minute here. And so thank you, everybody. So Christina, Diana, and Nick, any final closing comment, thought, takeaway for the folks who attended today?
I'm really happy to see that we had, 12%, that the number of firms not using some type of go, no go was low. That really made me happy to see that number. We thought that was going to be the case, but again, as I said, as we've been going through the validation here and research as we're continuing to improve the product, I was surprised to see the wide variety of firms that aren't doing things or are doing things really formal and all the steps in between.
All right.
Do you have our last meme to share, Diana?
Do we have
the
another
very last one? Right, I think that is. Oh wait, is he not there?
Did you just want your boyfriend? No.
One final thought. Yes, exactly.
One,
Just
Ben.
share.
Okay.
That's the best
All
one
right.
too. The best one.
Exactly. Thank you guys so much.
I'll wrap up. Okay, on behalf of SMPS, thank you to our presenters, Christina Gilson-Leahy, Diana Lovelace, and Nick Mayfield. And of course, to all of today's participants. The program has ended. You may now disconnect. Have a great day, everybody.